Hey, everybody, hit that like if you could. Like, subscribe, share the show. Happy hump day to you. Let everybody know we're here. We'll be up in just 1 second. Here we go. Just coming in 1 second. I'm going to come in hot. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Hi. If I'm a little exhausted or I look a little exhausted, it's because I am. I drove back from L.A. last night after the jam. I actually had to pull over at one point and take a nap because I was really tired. And that's what you do when it's smart. You do that. I actually did it twice because I don't play. If I'm even a little bit tired behind the wheel, I pull over and sleep. And so I rolled in about 40 minutes ago, just so you know. And so I did change my shirt, though, so it's okay. Now, joining me this morning, along with Phil in the second hour, is our dear friend, Major Ojeda from turnleftpack.org. Check it out. Get yourself some Jackaloon merch. Support the cause, because I have said many times, and you know I believe this, that if every Democrat in the country actually voted, we wouldn't have any red districts. We'd have blue districts and we'd have purple districts, but we wouldn't have any red ones, and they know it. That's why they attack voting rights and voting as an exercise as opposed to just the other party.
Yep.
So,
yeah,
crucial. Right. And welcome, by the way. How are you? Hope things are good. Have you been enjoying the DNC so far?
Absolutely. I absolutely think it's hilarious that I saw something earlier that they actually had, I forget what it was called. Let me see here. A watch party in Milwaukee where the RNC was.
Oh, my God.
They filled both places. They filled the stadium in Chicago and the stadium in Milwaukee. And you know that Donald Trump is going crazy because crowd size is like
everything.
It seems like that's all he cares about. It's crowd size. So that's phenomenal. I love the fact that we have Trumps that are speaking at the Democratic National Committee. You've got the mayor of Mesa, Arizona. You've got Ana Navarro. You've got other people that worked on his staff, on Trump's staff, that are speaking out against Donald Trump. You didn't have anything like that during the RNC. You had racist Hulk Hogan, and that was about it. And I'm telling you, the DNC is on fire. It is.
Oh my God!
Absolutely killing it. And the speeches. I mean, when Michelle Obama said that maybe somebody needs to tell him that the job he's trying for is a black job, and then Donald Trump's crowd size. Oh my gosh!
Oh, like I gotta say, from a comedic standpoint, and from a mic drop standpoint, and from a total diss standpoint, Obama's like hand gestures and then just barely looking at his hands to draw attention was so choice. Like the timing of it was surgical. It was so good.
Yeah.
Surgical.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, phenomenal. It was amazing. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, Hillary Clinton did a phenomenal job. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the DNC is absolutely fired up. It is strengthening.
It's what real excitement looks like.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I mean, there's a picture that has Kamala with the smile on her face, and next to her was Donald Trump when he fell asleep in the middle of the RNC. So, I mean, ain't nobody sleeping at the DNC right now.
Dude, one of the best things about the fact that they cut to her in Milwaukee at the same place he did his entire convention. She's doing a single campaign stop. It is just as full as their entire convention. And it looks cooler with that like theater in the round stage that they put there. No teleprompters. She just walking out there. They're basically like shooting the shit with the crowd there. And then, oh my God. And then they're cutting to her there and then referencing back to the full like McCormick Center in Chicago. So good. And you just know it's like she's got two giant crowds in two different cities at the same time. At the same time, this motherfucker is standing there with like 5 suck-up cops that like him in a town where 30 cops probably work and the rest of them didn't show up for this shit, where the guy owns, and that other event that he did the day before at a factory in York, PA, where the owner made his employees show up, which should be illegal, and that's a whole other conversation for another time. And they're having to fucking sit there. And my favorite part of that, and I showed a little bit on the stream, my favorite part of that was he goes, you're the kind of people that are the backbone of this country. You do all the work that makes this country move. And it's very clear he is not talking about, even metaphorically, the factory workers who are sitting in front of him. He is talking about his rich-ass friends that are peppered along the back wall who are going to a dinner with him later where they're going to give him money to run his campaign or whatever. Like, he's not... They're right in front of him, and he's, like, looking right over their heads to go, you guys are the important people.
Yeah.
Fuck him. And it's like a corralled audience, and they're miserable, and it's tiny. It's so good. All of it is so good.
Let's hope that this, fires people up, because here's the thing. We can't just beat Donald Trump. We have to annihilate him. Because if we show up in large numbers to vote and we win this election and we win it by a landslide, they won't have the ability to be able to say that it was stolen. They won't have the people that are put in place right now. And Rachel Maddow did a show on this. There are like 70 people placed in positions to basically challenge the elections. Yeah. But you know what? You can't challenge the elections when it's a landslide victory for the Democrats. They're not going to be able to do anything. And by the way, they also need to understand that just like the fake electors, and many of these fake electors are going to see the inside of a jail cell. That is a fact. They can be there too. They can follow the fake elector folks, and they can go to prison too. And as far as I'm concerned, don't bother me. I wish they'd send in prison for life. I don't care.
Well, I do think they should go for a significant amount of time, like a scary significant amount of time for attacking the function of the government, while the rest of us, because the thing I go back to is the government at its root is emergency services. The most important aspect of the government in many ways is the FDA, like food safety, and FEMA, for the two big Fs that are out there, not to mention, the CDC. If you fuck up the government so it's run poorly on purpose, you damage those things, that's our response time. That means people die. You are not just messing with, I want this run by my cronies and my type. You are also undermining its basic function, especially when it's Donald Trump. And you're absolutely right that this has to be a trouncing on behalf of Republicans. If Republicans want any chance at salvaging their party, Donald Trump needs to be fucked into next century by this election. He needs to be embarrassed to show his face outside the Tower of Mar-a-Lago. He's got to grow old, growing his nails out and pissing in mason jars for the rest of his life like Howard Hughes. He's got to, otherwise, and I think he will be, but otherwise there'll be this illusion that, we weren't loud enough in our bigotry, racism, and our shitting on women. We just should have. Some people will dumb it down and go, he was too loud with it and we need to do it in secret. Or we just need a better messenger for our awful plan, right? And they have to be obliterated in the election to get the fucking message, because they're not going to get it any other way.
Yeah, that's what has to happen. And we can. First off, understand that there's 21% more people at the opening night of the DNC than there was at the opening night of the RNC. And, we're talking about numbers, and Donald Trump loves numbers, and he hates numbers that are bigger than his. But that's exactly what's taking place. That's what's happening. The RNC did not bring people together. It didn't fire anybody up. They had a bunch of caricatures, Hulk Hogan, racist ass, fake wannabe athlete. Then you got Big Rock that's had 2 songs over the last 30 years, and that he's just a pander is what he is. But I mean, the speakers at the DNC have been on fire. I really believe that, it's really firing a lot of people up in this country. I think that a lot of people are starting to realize that Donald Trump, he's just a broken record. He says the same thing. I mean, Donald Trump isn't telling people how he's going to allow or help the elderly to be able to live in dignity. He's not talking about elevating people out of poverty. He's not talking about supporting jobs and bringing more jobs from overseas. Donald Trump is doing nothing but talking about crowd size and saying that America is a third world country. Well, if we're a third world country, first and foremost, the stock market is trading better than it's ever done before. Right now, you've got infrastructure projects going on all over the country due to President Biden's infrastructure package, the CHIPS Act, the PACT Act, capping insulin, capping prescriptions for the elderly people. There is so many things that Joe Biden has done that has made this country better. And now we know, Donald Trump absolutely tried to sabotage our exit strategy from Afghanistan. He absolutely did that. Donald Trump is now looking like he's guilty, most likely, of going against the Logan Act, which basically says that a civilian doesn't have the power to participate in politics with other countries.
Yeah, and negotiate on behalf of the United States government, right?
Yeah. Right now, they're saying that basically Donald Trump called Netanyahu and said, once again, don't solve no problems. We want chaos so that I can win. Don't fix the border, even though the Republicans and the Democrats came together with bipartisanship and created a border bill that creates another 1,400 Border Patrol agents, brings in lawyers to be able to deal with the asylum cases that are stacking up, and provide equipment that will allow us to check 50% of the vehicles crossing the border, where right now we only have the ability to check 5% for fentanyl. So these are the things that Donald Trump has already tried to sabotage the border bill, and now he's trying to sabotage Gaza and what's going on in Israel. So, I mean, Donald Trump needs to absolutely be defeated. But you know what, folks? Vote because you want to see somebody who has never had accountability get accountability. And that's what's going to happen in this race. Yeah,
you are. Yeah. The nice thing is, I've been saying for a long time, and my final thought across the Sexy Liberal Comedy Tour is our regular Sparksism here, which is, if you're ever confronted with a decision you believe is the lesser of two evils, choose less evil. And that is crucial anyways. And I think like Michelle Obama said last night, like, don't wait for the Goldilocks moment. But I got to say, I think personally, on a moral, ethical, and political level, that ship has fucking sailed. Okay, we're not talking about this kind of like a mild difference in percentages. Okay, we're not talking about there's 5% difference for the party. This is and in the lesser of two evils situation, we're talking about the difference between somebody you think might pick your pocket who isn't going to. That's your fucking problem, right? You think they are. Versus a serial killer who's trying to get you in their van. This is, in the lesser of two evils, there is a huge drop-off from serial killer actively trying to get you in their van and the person you think might try to pick your pocket who isn't. By the way, in that situation, you're the lesser of two evils. You're the one attributing negative stereotypes and ideas to the other side that they have not earned. Biden has done so many good things for this country. I think his presidency will be defined as an old man planting trees that he will never sit under the shade of. That is what he's spent his entire presidency doing. That in and of itself, as an ethic, has been a way to describe goodness in a human being, is that he is planting trees he will never sit under the shade of.
You're right. You're spot on. And you know what? At the end of the day, that's going to be a beautiful legacy of President Joe Biden. I believe it or not, I have a cousin who is a mayor in southern West Virginia. And we're talking about a town that has always been, the redheaded stepchild. They never got anything. And now all of a sudden something happened and they needed somebody to step up to the plate. And he has become the mayor, and he is doing so many amazing things.
Yeah.
You know, where we come from, a pool that anybody in the area can go to, especially the poor, because people don't understand. Not everybody has the ability to go to the beach every year. Most people where I come from are poor. And I told him, I said,
we went to the city pool every, that's where we went, or we swam in the creek.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, you don't realize this. I said, but you, by doing the things that you're doing, by actually using the funding to buy a brand new snowplow, to create and fix this huge pool area because you want to make sure poor kids have the ability to cool off in the summertime. I said, what you're doing is you're securing your legacy for the next 100 years. People are going to talk about what you did, the person that nobody has ever stood up for this town, ever. Nobody gave a shit. Everybody that was in power of that town was placed in power because they would do what the people over here wanted them to do, which meant don't bitch and ask for anything. You just get nothing while we take everything. And, I'm like, you know what? Now people are going to remember that there was finally a person that showed up that actually did wonderful things. And that's what Joe Biden is doing. And what you just said is beautiful. He is planting trees that he knows he will never receive shade from. Yeah. And that right there alone, that is selfless service.
That's right. That is the way I define the Joe Biden presidency across the board.
Wow. Beautiful.
That is who he is as a man. And you know what's even greater than just him doing it is that in many ways, post-Trump, it resets what the fucking standard is for the president of the United States. That Kamala Harris, who I have no worries will act with the same depth of integrity that she always has and stuff, will be inspired by Joe Biden's legacy. And every day, how do you follow someone like Joe Biden, who did that much fixing of America in 4 short years, gave up power for the first time since George fucking Washington?
Yeah.
That was the last guy who said, I'm not going to run again for the country.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Like,
he's different.
You're in the shadow of that human being. That's going to make you act better. And it fucking reset like our attitude about the presidency in the same way that looking at Jimmy Carter does now. You know what I mean? Like we see Jimmy Carter. He's such a beautiful human being. And basically Biden has become like Jimmy Carter with a Corvette. He like a that's young enough to ride a bicycle, right? That's where he is. But it is that honorable character, right? And I gotta say, when you're looking at the legacy of your life, it is so good to have people that you can ballast on and go, I wish I could live up to that standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish. Yeah. And everybody in his administration, in Kamala's administration, certainly you can see it in Waltz, and his appreciation will be driven by that every day to go, how do I leave a legacy even, like unto that and live up to that standard? It's like it sets us into such a good place, As of right now, I feel that he is the greatest president of my life, of my lifetime. And you know what? I don't necessarily think I would have said that, with the idea of Joe Biden at any point along the way. And I feel a bit of shame about that because I don't think he would have been a different president when he was slightly younger, 20 years younger. If he'd have been elected, if he'd have been the guy instead of Kerry, for example, this might be a whole different fucking world. If he'd have been the guy instead of Gore, this would be a whole different world because he wouldn't have taken the shit Gore did from Bush 1 in the first place. And if he'd have ridden that one out, we would be in a different space, right?
Yeah.
And that's something we'll carry with. That's our problem. But goddamn,
Yeah. I also feel that, I think that Kamala absolutely has the power and the heart to absolutely take things to even another level. Make no mistake about it. Right. I would love nothing more than to say, I loved Joe Biden. I thought he was the greatest president of my lifetime. But now I believe it's Kamala. I mean, I am completely excited about that potential.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got, she has selected a person who occupied a command sergeant major slot in the military. For me, that's a big deal because, Veterans Administration issues, those are real issues with us. And yeah, I love the Veterans Administration, but it don't mean they're perfect, and it don't mean I don't get pissed off often by the VA. But the fact that we have somebody that could be in the White House that absolutely that will demand that issues at the Veterans Administration become number one top priority to fix. That to me, that's exciting to me.
And that he's that way. And I do think there's this important distinction in this, that he was in the National Guard, that there was an element of, the idea that we would have somebody who served in the military who might be in sort of, for lack of a better phrase on it, the more macho edges of it. Wartime generals, those kind of things, which is what would normally drive kind of military votes, to what you gain when you put somebody who was served in that position. It's usually battle tested. They use those kind of phrases about it. But in this particular case, the National Guard is used not just to fight wars, more than they should be, by the way. I think one of the big stories about the fact that his unit was called to go to Iraq was that, what the fuck is the National Guard? This was probably the greatest thing Jesse Ventura said when he endorsed Harris, when he's like, why didn't anybody ask, why the hell is the National Guard being sent to a foreign land? Right? And you're like, shit, way to go, man. That standard, but they fight forest fires. They help stabilize cities after unrest.
Floods. Floods
fires, and natural disasters, hurricanes, and they help rebuild stuff. They help protect areas while the Army Corps of Engineers rebuild things. There's so much to it, and a renewed respect for that may perhaps, I think, lean towards more recognition of Biden's Climate Corps group and his a renewed belief in what would be the Peace Corps, which would be like one tier down from the National Guard, which is about the Peace Corps. If the State Department could have its own army, it would be the Peace Corps. Yeah. If that makes sense, right? And that's where Biden has been leaning. That's where she leans, and to move in that direction, where we're, again, a very prosperous country that can afford to be magnanimous to other countries so that we can help them get on their feet so that their citizens don't have to flee to our country just to eat.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people don't know this, but, we have pretty much given the National Guard the Kosovo mission. Right now, we still have troops that are in Kosovo basically trying to, be peacekeepers to keep them from killing each other. And I understand that, and I can understand why they do that. But when Jesse Ventura said what he said, that's absolutely spot on. The reason why that happened was because we decided that we were going to go ahead and fight a war on two fronts, and we decided that the best way for us to do that would be to bring the National Guard in. And the truth is that if we are fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan at the same time, and we didn't have the National Guard to come in and offset, we would have never got to go home. It would have been a year-long tour. It would have been, you're there for the friggin' duration of this damn war. Right. And, I have to say that I'm really, really glad that the National Guard was able to help us do that. But once again, we shouldn't have went there in the first place. We should have never needed the National Guard. The whole thing about Iraq, and it still bothers me to this day, because I have hatred towards this. I'm not ashamed of my service. I deployed to Iraq because we were going to go find weapons of mass destruction. Right. But, then it turns out that we were lured into a friggin' war that they wanted to start so that they could make friggin' the military-industrial complex wealthy, and then them as well be able to get their beaks wet. Hey, we lost a lot of people.
Yes, we did. And I would say it is actually darker than just the profit motive, because I got news for you. The MIC, the concept of the military industrial complex, which is, another way of saying public-private partnerships, and the fact that we privatize the making of a lot of our military stuff versus creating our own factories, which you can see why Russia is failing right now, because that's their system. It's a dumb idea. it goes beyond just them making money for Boeing or Lockheed Martin and stuff. It's that, and Wesley Clark pointed this out. He saw the list. The PNAC people and Cheney had gone, we start with this country, then we knock off this country, then we knock off this country, and there were 7 on the fucking list culminating in Iran. And we basically reset the Middle East in our image, as whatever their conservative ideal of what the fuck that would be, right? So like, it's even darker than that. These motherfuckers were trying to pull what I mean, if you think about, if you ever read the book Helter Skelter and you read what Manson's plan was, which was, by the way, incredibly stupid beyond being violent and gross. It was hilariously simple-minded. He got the idea that they could trigger a race war, and that black people, and this is Charles Manson, Charles Manson believed that black people are dumb, but they are physically superior, so therefore they will win the race war that he starts by tricking everyone, and then they won't know what to do once they've won it. They'll be like the dog that caught the car, and they'll need some white people to show them how to run the world that will live like kings over top of all of them, and that would be the Manson family. That was the plan, okay? It was a white supremacist plan. Fundamentally, Charles Manson was a fucking white supremacist, okay? And you know where he got his stupid white supremacy plan? From the fucking White Album. Like, just think, that's as dumb as Trump's whole thing about asylum. Him thinking that people are coming from asylums because people are seeking asylum here. He's a fucking moron. Charles Manson was a fucking idiot. And he was high and listened to the fucking White Album and got this idea that white people are better. Like, it's that dumb. Okay, so, but the PNAC plan for those 7 countries was effectively helter-skelter. We'll have these little wars tip off, and then as the dominoes fall, because they'll start inter-fighting, once they're weak enough, we'll come in and sweep. That was the plan, and it was a fucking terrible plan.
Wow.
And it was, never mind the murderous nature of it, never mind the grotesque behavior of it. It was sick. And then Trump fucking yesterday at that thing with the cops that he was standing in front of, he brings it up again that he was going to leave Afghanistan but keep Bagram. How the fuck do you get out and stay at the same time?
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's just absolutely clueless. But,
oh my God.
I think, when there was over 1 million Iraqis that were killed,
right.
Over what? Over what? We absolutely... We could have ended the friggin' war in Afghanistan within the first month of following the assault, the attack on New York and the Pentagon.
Kerry was right. Kerry, lost. He lost the election largely on a moment in the debates where he said this should not have been handled on a war footing. It should have been Interpol and the United States hunting down criminals. This was a criminal act, not an act of war, because it wasn't from a fucking country. You declare war on countries because they declare a war on you, and they act first. That's what a good country does. That's what Ukraine's doing right now. Ukraine didn't pick on fucking Russia. Russia attacked them. They are now at war with Russia because Russia declared war on them. You don't handle terrorism like war, because it ain't. It was a mass killing. It was a murder plot, and you handle it like that. And we could have. And yes, they would have used military assets to deal with it because of the remoteness of these camps, because of where Osama bin Laden was. But ultimately, that's what it was. That's what the crime was. That's what the act was. It was a mass execution, very much like Timothy McVeigh. Murdering all those children in the fucking preschool in the Oklahoma City, bombing. It was a mass act of murder. By volume, that doesn't mean we declare war on a country that didn't attack us. Neither of the governments, even Afghanistan, didn't participate in it. They were shielding them, but that happens all the fucking time. We should have dealt with this as a law and order issue. And Kerry said that. He was absolutely fucking right. He was dovetailing it on his who wants to be the last man to die for a lie. We're getting into another Vietnam situation, right? That's absolutely right.
Yeah, so, and I will tell you, I think that what you also said about Ukraine and Russia. I'll be honest with you. I know that now Vladimir Putin is talking about nuclear capabilities now that Ukraine has actually invaded parts of Russia. But I mean, at the end of the day, who started this? We begged Vladimir Putin to not invade the sovereign nation of Ukraine, but they did. And now that Ukraine is kicking their ass and running them out of their damn country and has decided, I think that Ukraine should absolutely refuse to stop until Russia hands over Vladimir Putin, because Vladimir Putin is the reason for this. And you know what? Let me tell you something. We hear about, they broke over 600,000 killed in action Russians just the other day. But we will not know the full number of casualties until this is over with and all the mass graves are dug up. I mean, they have done horrible things to the country of Ukraine. They have literally just destroyed the cities in Ukraine. And Russia needs to be held accountable. They should rebuild Ukraine. And, I don't give a shit if Ukraine wants to take. I'm kind of hoping that as they're pushing through Russia, that they're actually pushing towards Azerbaijan, Georgia, those places like there.
Yeah. Like
Dagestan,
Chechnya falling. Yeah, for after Chechnya's like military. Dictatorship falling so that they can pick their leaders again, and again, for those that don't remember, the fucking there's the 1997 Russia-Ukraine founding agreement, Russia-NATO founding agreement, where after they had attacked Chechnya the first time, NATO came in and said, all right, look, you need to stop fucking invading people and let them be themselves. You are not the USSR anymore. You're not going to get these countries back. And we need to work out some shit so that we don't get into a war at some time in the future. So they sat down at a fucking table and they worked out a peace treaty, which was that founding agreement. And what it ultimately stated, and anybody can go look at it, any of these people who said like NATO expansion motherfuckers can roll that into a big knot and stuff it up their ass. That Russia agreed that every country with sovereign borders, which included Ukraine, it still included Chechnya at that point because they had invaded the second goddamn time, and it certainly included Georgia and all of the other satellite countries of the former USSR, right? That all of them and all European countries have the right to their own sovereign security. And if they want to join NATO, they can join NATO. If they don't want to join NATO, they don't have to join NATO. If they want to join CSTO, which is the Russian NATO, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. And that's what it was. It was a fucking call it quits in 1997. And you know what Russia did right after they fucking signed that? They invaded Chechnya for a second fucking time. They invaded Georgia. They started salami slicing their way across that fucking country until they crossed a fucking pipeline so they could charge rent for that pipeline and steal the revenue that Georgia gets for having that pipeline transit across Georgia. They get to keep some of that money now because it's effectively their land. And then they just did the same thing to fucking Ukraine. And every time I go on TV, they, in the same group that Putin and all these other people are talking about nuking fucking Europe, these same assholes are saying Estonia's next, Latvia's next, and then fuck Finland. Like that's how they talk. And they mean it. Like how many countries do they have to, and by the way, all NATO expansion, all of it has been voluntary. Every country that has joined NATO since the expansion started is because they came hat in hand, knocking on the fucking door. Please let us into NATO, because if you don't, these motherfuckers are going to kill us. The CSTO expansion has been at the barrel of a fucking gun every time. It's an actual expansion.
Yeah, it gets me because we found out shortly after they first invaded Ukraine, where they were fighting for Kyiv, that plans surfaced that said, Moldova will be the next place.
Moldova, yeah, right.
Moldova. Moldova will be the next place. Then they're going to go into Romania. And once again, a lot of these places that are NATO countries, one of the reasons why they're NATO countries is because they don't ever want to go back to the days that were, behind the Iron Curtain. And understand that all of those places that we're talking about, all of those, you look at Dagestan, Georgia, when Russia invaded them, Russia acted like they were the good guys because, all right, we're going to leave you guys alone, but we're going to make sure that this guy is your leader. and they placed people that were pro-Putin in the leadership roles.
Belarus.
And the people are the ones that are going to eat the shit sandwich. And I hope that they don't stop until they have Vladimir.
I think it's you're a great strategist, and I think you sell yourself short. I think it's a brilliant plan. Don't take the Kursk region, keep expanding. They're at like 2,500 square kilometers now, which is huge. It's gonna be 5. It's soft 5 already, but before they officially say it, because there's a lot of OPSEC that they're not saying stuff. But I think you're right. How about this? Don't give us because the idea is that they'll go in there and then they'll demand land in Donbass or Crimea back, and like, we'll trade you Crimea for Kursk. We'll get out of Kursk if you give us Crimea. Get the fuck out of there. I think you're right. I think they should just ask for Putin to be turned over to the International Criminal Court. Don't trade land for it. Go, we'll leave Kursk when you hand over Vladimir Putin to us.
Yeah.
As soon as you hand him over, we're out of here. Brilliant. That's a great plan, Major. I like this because that totally changes the game. It becomes less about the territorial aspects and a recognition that this motherfucker started this shit because of his own plans, his own ideas, much like the PNAC guys were talking about, the Middle East. So huge.
I mean, to me, I think that's something, and I believe that the Russian people, I think that that's something that they could get behind. Hey, instead of allowing Ukraine to come in here and take over our country, we just have to basically hand over Vladimir Putin. Which, once again, I would think that after losing 600,000 young men and women in his brutal friggin' war in Ukraine, I would think that there's enough parents out there, there's enough family members out there that says, this son of a bitch has got to go. I'm thinking that this ends, either they hand him over or this ends just like what happened with Ceausescu and his wife, in Romania. And I'm going to tell you, I actually had family from Romania during that time. I had family during that time. And his name was Sealy. And he actually got permission to fly to America to come to West Virginia and visit his, those of us that were family. And, when he was there, it was just amazing. He was so happy to be there. And when he left, first off, he told us that he had a date that he had to be back in Romania. And if he didn't show up on that date, the plan was if you don't show up on this date, your wife and your children go to jail. That's what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, when we sent him home.
That's what China does.
We sent him home packages of bubble gum and stuff like that. His kids had never tasted bubble gum in their life. That's the kind of stuff that happens when you're behind a friggin' iron curtain that doesn't want anything except your resources. They want to come in, take all the money. They want to take all the oil. They want to take all the gas. They want to take all the funding that you're getting in those countries, and they want to take it back to Moscow while you live in absolute a shitty friggin' life where you're only allowed. And I mean, I think I might have said this on your show. I went to Bulgaria 2 years ago, and there was a themed restaurant that was basically behind the Iron Curtain of the USSR, and it showed they had the different types of TVs. You got to select one of the 3. They had 2 different types of refrigerators. You get to select one of the 2. If you have kids, they had 5 toys. 5 toys, like a little car you get in, like with the pedals.
Pedal car,
but you got to pick 2 of those 5 toys for your kids. That's it.
All of them, by the way.
Enjoy life.
All of them, by the way, lead paint and not stainless steel, so they rust. So kids are getting fucking tetanus and lead poisoning. Like that was the other aspect of this is that when you don't have that diversity or those options. The standards don't matter. Beggars can't be choosers. So once you lower the standards that much, then the safety shit goes out the goddamn window, right? I want to show you something real quick, and that was what made the noise behind here. This Ukraine has destroyed all of the bridges that can carry gear and that are big enough for trucks to cross going into the Kursk region. That's fucking crazy. So the Russians built a pontoon, which is a floating bridge to bring that stuff. This is it.
Yeah, let me tell you, that's very, very tactical. Believe it or not, when I first come in the Army, I was a bridge builder, and we built those type of bridges. We had ribbon bridges, medium girder bridges, Bailey bridges. We built all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you that every single day I list the losses of the day. I list how many armored personnel carriers, how many wheeled vehicles, how many tanks, how many helicopters have been destroyed, but also specialized pieces of equipment. And what I've noticed is every day there's more and more specialized pieces of equipment. Well, what's a specialized piece of equipment? It's a pontoon bridge. It's every single one of those pontoons is a specialized pieces of equipment. And what Ukraine is doing is just cutting off their ability to be able to supply. I mean, but it's also like the tactics of Russia. You know, when you've got a 30 friggin' vehicle movement and you're driving down a straight stretch road and you know that there's mines on the sides of the roads and you drive a 30 vehicle movement down the damn road and then you wonder why you got everybody slaughtered when they fired the first round and blew up the first vehicle, and then the second round blew up the last vehicle, and then they just smoked you like a cheap cigar for everybody in the middle. And to me, I'm like, where are the tactics of freaking Russia? Where's their capabilities? Why are they not out here with minesweepers and stuff like that? You know, we went down every one of those roads in Iraq and Afghanistan trying to find the mines and stuff, and we found lots of them. But we found them underneath the devices that we used that could take 2 or 3 hits before you had to change it out. Yeah. Russia has nothing like this. And the only thing that they've done tactically is they've decided to put these little tiny metal cages over top of their tanks, and they don't work.
Oh my God! It's for people that don't know, the drones that are autonomous, that are effectively like the smaller Reaper drone kind of things that are the modified things, is that they use a laser to judge the distance from wherever they're hovering to the top of the tank. And so what they do is they put this cage on top to create the illusion that the top of the tank is higher, and therefore the explosion happens further away, and therefore it doesn't actually penetrate you know what the Ukrainians did? They did this. That's it. That's what they fucking did. They fucking dialed the narrowness of the distance down 3 feet. Done. It doesn't work anymore. Like it's so fucking stupid. And they still do it though. They spent and you're even, I'm sure you know this, but they spend like hours, if not days, making these cages because they don't come with them. So they find shit around and they build them on top of it, and they have to maintain them. If they have to move the tank, it falls off. They have to put it back up again. And again, it's made out of like fucking rusty beds and all kinds of shit that they find, right? And they put it on top of that thing, and they fucking spot weld it with their repair kit and put it on top of there or whatever. And then it doesn't work and they get killed anyways. It's they're wasting their fucking time in this futile effort. It's madness. Yeah, look at this real quick.
Yeah,
so this...
Yeah, that top.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is cheap metal.
This is a... Hold on, let me see if I can shrink this. Sorry, back up. This is... You can see the kind of size of the smoke in this situation. But this is a view out of a fire truck into a... There is. Oil and gas facility in the Novorossiysk area. It's right near Moscow. This fucking thing has been burning for 2 weeks. They don't have any, that's the fire truck. These guys just drove up, looked at it, and drove away. They can't do anything. None of them know how to do it. And I swear to God, they throw fucking... these are the kind of guys who think you throw water on a grease fire. So they, because the guys that really know how to do it were sent to the front line and killed because it's so weird.
I just saw today that Ukraine is absolutely attacking Moscow with drones right now. Some of your own damn medicine. But I will tell you, I remember when we went into Iraq, we stopped at a place called Navistar, which is right on the border of Iraq and Kuwait. And what we did was we were there. We waited until nighttime. We waited until like 2:30 in the morning before we crossed into Iraq. And we literally was going around looking in dumpsters and everything that we could find that was metal. we were welding it on the sides of our vehicles. We were setting on friggin' sandbags. I mean, it was crazy.
Right.
How things are working, but that's how they're operating now, and they don't understand.
Well, the interesting thing, like, and I remember that very distinctly. I think a lot of people probably in the audience do. Let us know in the chat room if you know what we're talking about in that stuff. But there was we
called it hillbilly armor. That's what it was.
Right, but everybody was freaking out because even people who were not for the war or who had marched against it still had the intelligence and the ethics and the morals to say our soldiers should not be in danger driving in this area in their Humvees that aren't up armored to deal with this particular threat, and they didn't have the helmets for it. They didn't have bulletproof vests, all kinds of stuff, and so we were basically like crowdsourcing this shit in, and then we stabilized it, and then production got up to speed. And people wrote it off as it was a 9/11 thing because we were in such a hurry, but that's just bullshit. They just shouldn't have sent that shit into where they went.
Yeah, we were in like month number 8 of our year-long deployment before we finally started getting up-armored stuff. That was the best. That was the best stuff that we could get. I mean, for 8 months, we drove around on hillbilly armor. We went outside the wire every day. I mean, it was crazy. And I'll be honest with you, we were pissed. We were pissed because it was I'm trying to keep my guys alive here, man, and we got to go out here on these damn roads.
And I will say that is a big distinction, and I think I'd love your opinion on this. There's a big distinction between the situation the U.S. found itself in this, which is a rush to war, and it took them time to get there, and then it got solved, and it stayed solved for the length of the deployment from that point forward, right? Versus Russia never doing it or pretending it wouldn't be a problem at all, and then it getting worse. Can you imagine being in the battlefield, like the first 8 months, you're like, oh, we're going to kill it. It's going to be great. We don't even need this shit. And then as you need it, it gets harder and harder to find. The shit you get is worse and worse. They're driving these fucking Sanford and Son trucks, now into the war zones because all the real troop transports have been blown to fucking pieces with the troops in them. Right? And so they're fucking, they're not even trying. And these guys, they're not even up armoring these things. They're just trying to outrun drones like fucking maniacs. It's so, it's.
And they don't even realize, the Ukrainian drone game is at the top. Oh. I mean, understand that, you've got drones that are the size of your damn phone that they can literally fly. I mean, like they've got soldiers hiding in culverts, and they just take a drone and fly right into the culverts and destroy them. Yeah. I mean, the UAV game for the Ukrainians. I don't think that they're nowhere near as top notch as our UAV. I mean, when I was a S3 operations officer in the 82nd Airborne Division, we had a company, and half of that company was focused solely on UAVs. When we went to Haiti for the earthquake, they were flying around trying to find unrest and stuff like that and let us know exactly where it was. I mean, but I'm telling you, Ukraine is doing a phenomenal job. Yep. And my thought is that what they should say, we're not going to stop until we have Putin in our hands. Other than that, it doesn't stop. Right. I do like the fact of seeing places like Azerbaijan, Dagestan, Chechnya. They need to. That's why I'm like, we should connect. They should keep pushing until they connect with those countries, because then those countries can say, okay, now we'll join you. And let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you right now, Chechens are absolutely brutal warriors. They are warriors. You watch all this UFC stuff, these guys from Dagestan and Azerbaijan and Chechnya. Let me tell you something. They have a warrior's mentality, and the moment that they take the puppets out, the daggone Putin put in place, I'm going to tell you, they're going to be willing to join Ukraine and kick Russia's ass, because make no mistake about it, they all suffered under friggin' Russian control. That's a fact.
Yep. I want to show you real quick. This is the current kind of soft map of the area taken in Kursk right now. So, and if you'll notice, it kind of looks like, I like rotate this around in my zone. There you go. Try to go over here. It kind of fits a middle finger, like right there. that it's shaped a bit like this. And this is the break point. Now
that's West Virginia, by the way, too.
That's right. And you can see these areas where they have cut off the support bridges. Nothing is taking this back. Like that's what people, you get focused on how fast they're expanding this area, which they basically, like, this is the blue line is the confirmed, the double dotted line is the soft confirmed, and then there's a fucking balloon around this that's even bigger of, like, they basically have this because there's not enough Russian forces to do it. They're just letting the civilians fuck off. They're letting them leave. And they're like, there's video after video after video, and I'm sure some of them are being let out because they want a good propaganda image and that kind of stuff. But it's still true of Ukrainians bringing fucking food to people who didn't have it. It was one of the most heartbreaking images I saw. Whoops, hold on. Where'd you go? Oop, there you go. Sorry, it bounced on the wrong. They get back. There you go. Of a starving woman who I don't know if she had MS or something, but she was bedridden. They just left her. When everybody bugged out of Kursk, they just left her in the bed. And the soldiers walked in. Yeah, Kat saw it. She goes, she was skin and bones. She was rail thin. And the Ukrainians, like, she was screaming for help. They came into the room and she goes, I can't drink for myself. I don't know how to drink water effectively, is what she said. And I think what she meant was, depending on the translation, I don't know how to get water for myself. And so the soldier gave her his water and like just held it for her for a second. And then at one point she just was like propping it on her hand and just guzzling it. And they had just left her. And again, either they know they're full of shit about the Ukrainians and they know the Ukrainians aren't going to kill her and move on. You know what I mean? And that they've been lying about them the whole time, which is awful. Or they actually believe the Ukrainians are fucking Nazis, and they're like, we'll leave her to that. She's not worth saving. We can't. It's us or her, so fuck her. Yeah, we'll just leave her behind.
Well, I mean, what do you expect with a country that has literally sent 600,000 of the youth of that country to their death? And I will tell you that, I believe that it's a war crime. I believe that it's a war crime for you to take young men and women, give them little to no training. We're talking a week, 2 weeks tops, handing them a rifle and then shipping them to the front line. They are lambs going to the slaughter.
That's right.
It's proving they are losing. I'm telling you right now, over the last 120 days, there have only been 3 days where they had not hit the 1,000 death mark. And that was 2 980s and 1 950.
And I bet
1,300, 1,200.
Those were, and by the way, those were curiously close to an area where there was a lot of OPSEC going on around the Kursk stuff. So they very well may have gotten more than that, but they were keeping their mouth shut about where they were happening. So as they approached the Kursk border and it busted through, I guess, a few people, they're not going to list those people as people they got and to draw attention to that area as they made the break across the Kursk border. So, like, I know we're getting near the bottom of the hour. Phil, I haven't seen Phil yet, but he'll be here in a minute. So we'll hang, if the major can hang with us for a minute while he's doing it. The Ukrainians hit the Lenin statue in Sucha, knocked the head off of it with a grenade launcher. As a fuck you to that crowd, which was pretty hilarious. And these guys, I mean, we talked, it's interesting because you and I, I'm sure, like, one of the best things about what's going on in Ukraine right now, and I'm going to talk to Phil in the next hour about it to some degree, is the fact that Harris absolutely supports Ukraine. There's not going to be a diminishment of, now, Israel will have to justify everything it asks for. Ukraine will not. Right. But with Waltz, I think is one of the most fearsome supporters of Ukraine. I mean, he's right up there with how Biden views it, that this is an existential threat to democracy beyond even just the militaristic aspect of it, that this is meaningful on a scale, that's,
do you remember? Let me tell you something. This is the one time. This is the one time in our life where you can absolutely say with confidence that there would be a domino theory in this. You know, we went into Vietnam because we got to stop communism, because if we don't, the domino theory. But let me tell you something. Without a doubt, this is the domino theory. We know that he wanted to take Ukraine. Then we know that Moldova was next. Romania would be next. He wants to go back and get the countries that he had before. That's Bulgaria. That's Serbia. That's back then the Czech Republic, but now Czech Republic and Slovakia was Czechoslovakia. I mean, let me tell you something. These people don't want to go back. They do not want to go back to those days. But make no mistake about it. Had Russia taken Kyiv in 3 days and would have been successful, they would have already invaded half of Europe, and we would not stop. We would not be able to stop this without a freaking flat-out World War III.
Agreed. I see Phil in the background there. We will address this as well. Major, love you. I want to check everybody to check out turnleftpack.org. Yes, we are not going back, Brad. That is absolutely right. By the way, share, hit the like, and all that, and check out the Major's live stream as well. Are you covering the DNC on your live stream? Are you doing parts of it live or any of that? Are you watching and then talking after or anything like that?
We're watching and talking afterwards, but everything's going well. Real quick before I pop off, Phil, stay safe, brother. Stay safe. I know you're in Ukraine. You've been in Ukraine now for about a year or more. But let me tell you something. That's balls of steel, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, I appreciate you. Hey, I've been in combat zones, brother. Believe me, you got balls
I hear you, brother.
Steel. You know, I had to go. There was nothing I could do. You're voluntarily going there. You're a badass, brother. And Hal, I love you, brother. You always. I enjoy our conversations, man.
Me too.
I'll see y'all later.
I can't wait to do it in person. We'll see you soon. All right.
Everyone.
Cheers. Okay, there he goes. And then
take care, Major.
Yeah, and then I'll pop Phil in this guest thing, and we'll do this. There you go. We'll close there, and bingo. There we go. Excellent. Now you got to shrink it down a little bit because it made you extra primo big. It's like, yeah.
Extra primo big.
Yeah. Extra primo good. There you go.
It's the fun time talky talk.
Yes. So, hi. Obviously, we got on a tear, the Major and I, about what's going on in Ukraine right now in the Kursk region. And Major had a brilliant idea, which was that Ukraine should offer not to trade Kursk for Crimea, but Kursk for Putin. Turn him over to the International Criminal Court, and we'll get the fuck out.
I think there are probably a lot of people in the Kremlin who would be perfectly happy with
shit.
That.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. I'm just saying somebody should float it.
I wouldn't hold my breath.
I agree. I agree. But that should, at the very least, that should be one of those things that just floated all over social media. You know, like hashtag Putin for Kursk. You know, that I'm dead serious. Like that will absolutely. I'm
all for putting it out in the ether. Yeah.
Yep, and making them sweat it. Now that said. But like a bunch of things. First of all, how you recovering from? That's one of the first questions that came up. How you doing? Yeah, how's your arm?
Yeah, the arm it's healing, but it hurts. It hurts like a Dickens. But it is getting better. So it is not broken. It's just badly bruised. And when you get kind of like a Charlie horse, or when you kind of bang your elbow or your knee against, and that throbbing.
Oh yes, I know it well.
That kind of, yep. That's what's going on with the old arm. But it'll heal. It's
right.
Such is life.
Yes,
it's one of those things. So
true. So I would like to show you one of the funniest images that I've seen, I think, so far, which is this is two. Russian priests praying over the exploded, the Rostov oil field that is on fire. It's been burning for so long. They sent these dudes down to pray the fire away. Good luck with that, assholes. I'm sure God cannot wait to answer your prayers, you big dum-dums. It's so good. I mean,
so pathetic.
It's so,
They're
and
so
you
pathetic.
totally
And I love they got the little desk for the icon. You know, the Russian.
Yeah.
You know, the you know,
it's a serious endeavor.
Christ kind of. Oh, absolutely. Of course it is.
Yeah. I mean, they look like extras in a Marvel Comics training scene, right? That are in the background while Doctor Strange is learning to fight, and this guy's in the background practicing shit. And we'll add the effects later. It'll look magical. Right now, it looks a little stupid, but just assume there's like blue light coming out of it, and whatever. I'm just waiting for one of them in Russian to go, "It's beautiful," and his face to fucking melt. But I thought this was one of the funniest fucking things.
That thing has been burning for 4 days. They can't put it out.
Yeah.
They can't put it out. They can't do anything. They can't seem to do anything.
That would be this.
That would be the Rostov fire, the fuel depot fire.
Yeah. Back in the background. That's in the background of these dickheads. That's what's happening. Yeah. Look at that shit. 4 fucking days. And by the way, it's not the only one. There are like multiple of these fields that are on fire at the same time. And again, I go back to just one of those fucking things in the United States. Just one. Fucking one of those things. It would be
national news.
National scandal. All the time, not only just like, how is it still burning? When are they going to put it out? But how did this happen? How is it allowed to happen? How could we be so weak and stupid? Like, we would be chewing our fucking backs to, bitching about
who's responsible. Heads will roll.
Right. Either political party, whoever, was out of power at the time, would be using this as massive leverage on the other, whether they deserved it or not. Right? Yeah, good Lord.
That's Russia for you.
Yes, it is. And where did Putin go? Did he go to was it Malaysia? No, that's what.
No. He went to Azerbaijan.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And then on his way back, he stopped in Chechnya, and then I think he's going all the way back to Moscow. I don't know if he's got any other stops, but this is all Russia's. Kind of Caucasus underbelly. Azerbaijan is a massive oil producer on the Caspian.
Big plot point in the movie yes. The World Is Not Enough. If you'll recall, there's a lot of Russian secondary storyline, pipeline storyline. There's even the idea, the pig scene where they blow up their own pipeline, which again...
Azerbaijan's a fascinating story because it has one of the largest oil fields in the world.
Right.
And it is this, I've never been to Baku. All the times I've been to the Caucasus, I've never been to Baku. But I have friends that live there, and they describe it. I mean, it's like you can't throw a stone without either hitting somebody from BP or a Texan who's come in from Houston to do. It's oil. It's all oil. It's all oil. I mean, the place is just, that's what it's built on. And there's a massive oil production industry down there. So there's no way that Vladimir Putin went down there and didn't have something to do with oil. Then he also did. He laid a wreath at the Beslan school, which is the site of this horrible school shooting that they had in Russia, somewhere in the aughts, if I'm remembering correctly. Mm-hmm. But of course they don't. Of course they don't take into account the fact that the death toll was so massive in Beslan was because they stormed the school. And the Chechens had rigged the place to blow, and I mean it's
same thing with the theater where they gassed them and they killed everybody in there.
The theater, and they didn't do the mix for the gas properly,
or did they
poisoned a lot of people in the theater, or did they? And in addition to that, they went into the theater and the tankies love this. The kind of the MAGA types who don't think 2 steps ahead. They love this story because they're like, see, this is how you do it. This is how you treat terrorists. And what they did was the Russians went into the theater, and they were all gassed up, and they were dying because they'd done the wrong proportions. But what the Russians did was they walked in and they just started executing the Chechens. Execution style. And everybody in the world was like, what are you doing? That is a perfect, get those guys, sweat them, learn what they know.
Yeah.
Then go get the guys who, organize this, or the web, or the organization that they're a part of. But Russians never, they don't.
Well, they also
like the megatypes.
Do they really want? How far back does it go? I mean, we go through all kinds of conspiracy theory in our country nonstop. Sure. We make them up, but over there, it's genuine. It's one of the reasons why we have such a huge conspiracy culture over here is because Russia and China both engage in actual conspiracies on that level. And so they feed these stories into, and not saying that there haven't been ones, we talked about the PNAC idea of like destabilizing the Middle East, but it wasn't a function of the actual government or some, element like the CIA's entire purpose. Rogue elements are one thing, but this is an active, plan by the military and by the government itself, that a real conspiracy. Russians and the Chinese do it all the time. By the way, real quick, this is also another funny one. This is a Russian T-90 being towed by a Ukrainian troop transport. It's their tank. Yeah, their tank is. They're towing away another T-90, which is the highest, the most complicated tank the Russians have.
What was the signpost?
Oh yeah, it's a good question. I'll see if I can pause it on there.
See if we can pause it and see if we can find out where this is.
Okay.
Let's see if I can.
Ovikopka? So it looks like Ovikopka, something like that. Yakovka.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to see because it's a little blurry.
Anyhow,
and it's apparently whatever it's that way.
Is it Russian or Ukrainian?
It's Russian.
Oh, it's Russian. That's definitely Russian script. That's not Ukrainian script.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
They're in Kursk. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, hilarious. It's fucking hilarious. They're really dumb and it's fun.
Russian surrenders. Those continue. Fighting is not great down in the east, but,
we do have a question from the chat about please ask Phil about the warrant Germany issued for the Ukrainian diver for bombing the gas line. So that's the related to the Nord Stream 2 that was blown up, which Seymour Hersh said our National Guard did it because he has a buddy who told him, and now the Germans have actually issued an arrest warrant for a Ukrainian who was one of the people who rented this boat that went out and was near it, but nobody has said whether they actually had to.
Yeah, it all stems from this story about like a Ukrainian oligarch going drinking with a bunch of Ukrainian special forces guys, and they just kind of thought this up, sort of thing. I mean, it's possible. We don't know. Right. What bothers me with the Seymour Hersh type mentality, which was picked up by Aaron Mate, or was picked up by
and Rusty Trombone, all those guys. Yeah,
Rusty Trombone, and then Jimmy, Moore. Is that they've already predetermined what had happened, and obviously it was the West, and obviously it was the United States, or obviously it was our proxies in the Ukraine, but bad West. And they've already made up their mind about it. Now it could be bad West. I mean, sure, quo bono, who benefits? Right. My only problem is that they are going into it with a narrative that they want to see verified. They're going in with a preconceived notion of what happened, and they're looking for the facts to back it up.
Right.
I have said all along about Nord Stream that I don't know who did it. But I find it very suspect that Gazprom we've talked about this before, you and I, Hal, but I'll just reiterate it for those who haven't heard it.
Right.
Gazprom, when it was trying to sell this pipeline, when it was trying to promote the idea of the pipeline going under the Baltic Sea, they went to the Scandinavians and the Balts, who, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, who would be most affected by a burst pipeline. And they went to them to sell it to them by saying it will be the most monitored pipeline in the world. Not a single centimeter, not a single stretch will not be covered by some sort of monitoring device.
Right. And then, and then there's no footage. There's no
data?
sonic.
Where's that data?
There's no that data, buddy? Yeah, there's no.
Either you were lying then, or you have data that you don't want to reveal for some reason. That's the only thing. That's the only place where I'm putting my thumb on the side of like who benefits from this, what actually happened.
Well,
but
I'm
still like, I want to see these assholes go in there with the idea of like, we're going to find a way to blame the West.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens with this.
Also, there's an element of cui bono that does not work in this, because on the one hand, even the person that is damaged can benefit from it because of political stuff, how they would use it. It's a dead pipeline anyways. So if they, what use does it have? Because it's never going to supply gas to Europe again. That's done. So what can we use it for? Well, we can use it as a hammer against the West. It's got weaponizing potential, so that it benefits in that regard. The other thing is that outside of Russia, everybody benefits. The who benefits part is not a trackable line, because too many people benefit. The entire world, but for Russia, benefits from it. And then if you add the secondary propaganda aspects of it, Russia benefits as well. Everybody does. You can't follow the money because the money goes everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. I went out for cocktails with this week's what I think will be this week's episode of this week's guest on The Edge. And we were talking about this, and he said to me, I don't care. I don't care who did it. It's like my friend had a heroin addiction. His dealer was killed. I don't care. My friend is no longer addicted to heroin. I'm so sorry about the family of the heroin dealer, but, we had to get Germany off of that. And this has been a long-standing issue with Russia weaponizing fossil fuels.
Right.
And we do definitely have to wean ourselves off of Russian natural gas and oil and what have you.
Right.
So
it's already happening.
I mean, terrible ecological ramifications. Obviously, not good, a crime, but also don't care. Bigger fish to fry. Bigger. And I know the tankies will go, yes, but it led to war. It was a provocation. Man, this war was coming no matter what. Yeah. This war was
it was already happening. Like the Nord Stream 2 didn't start the war. It was just like we're 8 months in or 10 months in when it actually happened, whenever that was. So again, it was never going to open anyways. And by the way, it was after, and this is why I suspect Russia more than I suspect anybody else. It was after the Germans had already said, we're not going to use it anymore. We're cutting ourselves off. And they had already switched to getting their natural gas from the United States and Norway until they secured this deal with Qatar. And now they get their gas from there and Kazakhstan.
Yeah, look, I had a source when this happened, and we talked about it in LA when we met in LA. Although almost 2 years ago, probably now. And my source within the Russian press corps, who had sources within the Presidential Security Service. So take that for what it is. I mean, this is this is several steps removed. And also, again, I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm saying this is what my friend who has sources said happened. That this was part of a fight, an internal fight in the Kremlin, or in the power structure in Russia, in Moscow, between what's called the Siloviki, the strong men, which are kind of made up of the intelligence and the defense guys, in contrast with the oligarchs who were making money from the sale of natural gas. And it was a way to say to the oligarchs, get on board with the war in Ukraine. This is done. You're not making your money this way anymore. And it was an internal struggle. This is what my Russian contact, was hearing at the time. Right. Still don't know, but I mean, this fixation, and also, by the way, I also find it very interesting. And this I might be getting into tinfoil hat territory here, but I do find it interesting that this Nord Stream story shows up just as the Kursk incursion happens. They've used Nord Stream in the past as a distraction to pull the news, to try and pull something bad off the news cycle. So, look, the whole time, I'm not, whatever with the Nord Stream thing. Sure, it'd be great if we all knew what happened just for history's sake, but we are so down the road from that. It's, what, even if it was the Ukrainians, what are we going to say? Oh, you nasty Ukrainians! Now we're going to remove all our support for you. No, we are way past that. That is water well under the bridge.
Yeah, Connie Kelly says Russia has now sent their cosmonaut training force to Ukraine. Guess they will no longer be on the ISS. When you're using your astronauts for cannon fodder, I wouldn't take that as a sign that you're winning. In general. Good Lord. Yeah, it's pitiful.
The best use of your best and brightest is to send them to the.
It is so pathetic.
Short-sighted.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, among all the other things, it's just oddly lame for all the shit about that. Russia was going to win this in a couple of days and all this kind of stuff. Like, the fact that they can even whinge at all is pathetic. The fact that their plan is this bad. Hubris explains in the beginning. Yeah, 2 years ago, hubris makes sense. Because you got out over your skis, you thought this would be easier than it was, you didn't think they'd have any backup, you were planning on Trump being in there for a second time because you did everything you could to help him get reelected, and then it failed, so you had to punt your plan a year, but you figured, fuck it. But, before, the United States moves all that gear that they got out of Afghanistan, because we moved a shit ton of stuff out of there, into a strategic place where they could hand it off to somebody, or even decide that they could, you'll have your Ron Johnsons and other people running interference, to make sure they don't attack now, and by the time they get on their feet, we'll be done. That's what the plan was. Just go with the plan we had before, anyways. Win by attrition. It's gonna kick ass. And then it didn't work, and so you can almost be forgiven that you went for it. You took a big swing and you whiffed it. Whatever. But fucking 2.5 years into it, you don't get that kind of a pass. It just gets dumber.
And the Ukrainians continue to outsmart them, outmaneuver them.
On every front.
They are in control of the narrative here, even with the fighting that is admittedly going, not great down in Donbass. There is territory being lost, but they're losing territory in terms of a few hundred yards, whereas Ukraine's incursion into Kursk is taking, mile after mile, square miles. Hundreds of square miles now are owned by Ukraine. So, and also having been down where that fighting is, because again, I'm always aware of what the other side is saying, the tanky side or the Russian side. For them to say, oh, this is going to be some sort of massive rout, and the Ukrainian army is going to collapse, and it'll just be straight to Kiev after that. And I'm like, I've been down there. I have seen the lay of the land. And it was a year ago that I was in Chasiv Yar, roughly, give or take. It was about a year ago that I was in Chasiv Yar. And if you go back to my vlog from the front lines there, back when they were still fighting for Bakhmut, and Chasiv Yar was a supply route into Bakhmut, I made the observation then, and I stand by it now, that they are just doing line after line after line after line of defensive trench works and anti-tank. And that was a year ago. So I mean, God only knows what it's like now. In addition to that, these guys who look at maps and the satellite imagery, which is important and it plays a role, but there's no replacement for actually on the ground monitoring. And what I can tell you from that stretch of territory is that it's mile after mile of these sloping, low incline fields that lead up to a tree line, and then they go back down, and then it's a sloping field up to another tree line, and just mile after it's like Pickett's charge, time and time and time. You're totally exposed. Now, can they blast the hell out of the Ukrainians with, these these massive bombs these fab bombs that they drop? Yeah, and Ukrainian positions might be pretty exposed in that, but I still can't get past the idea of some Russian tank or armored personnel carrier trying to move through these fields, because they're just gonna stick out like thumbs. And anybody who's got a TOW or a Javelin, much less an actual tank, would be able to see these things from 10 miles away, sort of thing. I mean, there's no cover, absolutely no cover. So this idea that there's going to be a massive breakthrough and that the Russian forces in the Donbass are going to come streaming through, it's fantasy land.
Yeah. I want to show something else. This is another kind of like, I just love it. Just stack this with the hashtag winning aspect of how well Russia's doing. This is the Ferris wheel in Russia. Okay. If you'll notice, it's not Ferris wheeling right now. It's stuck. Everybody's in it, and people are screaming and trying to break the windows out because it's like 30 degrees Celsius in Moscow right now. And 105, 110. And I love the description. Dozens of people are stuck on the Ferris wheel in the Izmailovsky Kremlin in Moscow, which is the little
Izmailovsky Park.
Yeah.
Izmailovsky Park, yes.
Yeah.
I used to go and get my bootleg software there.
There you go. Due to the power surge, the ride has stopped and cannot continue moving. The temperature inside the cabins can reach 40 degrees. Whoops, hold on. People are screaming about the. Here, I'll shut it down so I can read the full thing. People are screaming about the unbearable heat and stuffiness trying to break the cabins. According to the administration, it was not possible to turn the electricity back on because there is no electrician in the park. Now that power has been restored, cabins with people are being lowered down. Finally, they were only up there for hours in the middle. This is in the capital. That's in the capital of the fucking country. Can you imagine if there was a Ferris wheel in D.C. and the Biden administration? Imagine what all the fucking tankies and the Jackson Hinkles and all that crowd would say about Biden if it came to a close because of poor management by the city, which is even out of their normal control of it. Like that, they're like, oh my God, this is so indicative of how everything is shit right now in this country, right? Mm-hmm. Just hilarious. The other thing too is somebody was pointing out that, and this is par for the course for Trump, obviously, but the big story right now is whether or not Trump has violated the Logan Act by talking to Netanyahu and telling him to not join a ceasefire.
That's some messed up shit, man.
Yeah.
That is really fucked up. And why isn't Code Pink? Why is Code Pink not outside of Mar-a-Lago?
Oh, exactly. Why aren't the people who are outside the DNC yelling ceasefire now? Why weren't they outside of fucking Mar-a-Lago when Netanyahu was there? Because it wasn't time to get paid, I think. But this is a violation of the Logan Act, and the idea is that if Trump did make a call, he would potentially be breaking the law, as the Logan Act, enacted in 1799, prohibits unauthorized private citizens from negotiating with foreign governments on behalf of the U.S., which is really what they mean is, if you help me get elected, I'll guarantee it goes away. Effectively, this is another Bob Menendez moment. It's just on a bigger political scale.
With lives.
Yes.
On the line, too.
Right.
Every day there's not a ceasefire,
people die unnecessarily. Same thing.
This sick, narcissistic traitor is calling up and saying, "Don't make a ceasefire. Don't keep the killing going until I get elected, and then we'll work it out."
Same thing with the border deal. It's this. It's
that
like
is vile.
He's only got, when he's out of power, he offers favors. When I get in power, I'll give you some stuff on the down low. And then the other side is, if he's in power, he tries to use that power as leverage. It's the same thing he did with in Ukraine, when he was like trying to use the withholding the javelins so that they would just have a press conference about opening an investigation into Biden. You don't have to actually do it. Just say you're going to do it, and I'll release the javelins, because he had the power to do it. However, because we actually have a functioning democracy, he only had it for a very limited time, because once the time ran out, his bluff was called, and he had to release the stuff, or there had to be another vote, and everybody would be on to him. He could only hold it for so long. Now, I don't doubt that somebody got wind of it and called like somebody in Zelensky's circle called, Democrats or even Republicans who are favorable to them, and when he's doing this, and they went, "Oh, he can't do that. On this date, they got to go, or he'll be caught, and this is a crime." And so they counted on this, so that's why they could call his bluff.
Well, last week's episode was Lev Parnas, and we talked about exactly that. All they wanted them to do, they didn't even want them to do the investigation. They just wanted them to announce the investigation. It's that's all kinds of messed up. And it's just, look, he has got to face consequences. You can't do this. God, and again, I reiterate, why are not the guys who are attacking at the DNC, or who tend to attack, I mean, even like this whole genocide
Joe bullshit, right?
Joe bullshit. It's like, well, okay, why aren't you then? Because right now, today, as we speak, Gazans, or IDF soldiers, if you lean that direction, either way, people are fighting and dying, and this piece of shit has now got every single death that happens from that phone call on. He owns part of that. At least, at least a percentage of that is on him. Yeah, because
every fentanyl
you're obstructing the ceasefire for whatever reason. Every fentanyl death.
Since Trump shut down the border,
with no water or whatever in the desert. It's on him.
Yeah, and actively so. It wasn't like, he was like, fight for something stronger, and you could make a soft ethical argument that he should, whatever. He specifically said, kill it. Yeah, directly.
This is not abstract. This is real.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's the sooner we get him in the rearview mirror, the better. I'm enthused by what I'm seeing at the DNC. That's great. I do wish a little bit that Ukraine was on more of the agenda, but I understand why it's not.
Because they've already answered it. They already know, and
they have. And I mean, and I'm biased. I fully 100% admit that I would like the topic of discussion to be nothing but Ukraine, but that's not going to happen. And I'm being facetious, but regardless, they've already we know the difference between those of us who study the policies of both sides of this equation when it comes to Ukraine. Know which side's better. You got a guy who is compromised by Vladimir Putin, who is 100% beholden to the Kremlin, and I'll stand by that. And his running mate, who wouldn't meet with Zelensky during the Munich Security Conference because he, quote unquote, knew everything already about Ukraine.
Right.
As opposed to, Harris, who has stood by the White House's policy in Ukraine, has done, meeting after meeting with delegations, and her running mate, who bloody well made, was it where did he make? He made his sister city, one of the larger cities in
like St. Paul, I think,
Minnesota. Yeah, was it connected to Chernihiv? I think.
Yeah,
maybe it was Minneapolis. It might have been.
Minneapolis.
Anyhow, regardless, and he also is a very vocal he meets with Ukrainian delegations when they come and stands there with the Ukrainian flag.
Well, that's why I think you're not hearing
I'm a single issue. Yes, I agree.
Same thing about climate. There's a story in the I think in the New York Times about how like Harris is quieter about climate, largely because it's already known. Democrats have already staked their claim to this. We care.
Sure.
They're not walking anything back, but they don't need to feed any more sound bites for the right to misuse. So why bother? We know what we stand for. In the same way, and maybe it's a smart use of of tactical languaging in the same way that, I guess the Republicans, especially Trump and the people he would put on the Supreme Court, would talk about abortion and kind of like, oh, it's settled law. We don't need to talk about that at all. And because they were planning on attacking it, because they were planning on making it a priority. But they knew if they brought it up, it would be used by Democrats and independents to push back on this and go, wait a second. The same thing is true of the right wing. But it's not even like they're worried about it. It seems like they're doing it just to fuck with them. It's like Trump can't deal with the fact that Kamala is not laughing as much because she's busy fucking working and doing shit. She smiled and laughed during the DNC because it was wonderful. But she's now going to be the president of the United States. I got to tell you.
And it's such weak sauce as well.
Yeah, it's so lame.
Weak sauce. You're grasping
But
before we move on, when it comes to the DNC, I am being facetious. I know where they stand. I know what the deal is. I am a single issue voter. Okay, I got one issue that will determine whether or not you get my ballot or not, and that is support for Ukraine, because I genuinely feel this is like one of the most important things happening on the globe right now. Mm-hmm. So if you are, and I already know what the platform is, so I am good to go. I wouldn't mind it terribly if it was at least mentioned. Or have somebody from Ukraine, have a Ukrainian representative speak.
Yep.
That would have been kind of nice, because I think that would have also garnered, because you can make the point of.
I think Vindman would be a good
stand by.
I think Vindman would be perfect. A great option. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
but the idea too is that you want to undercut the two big, whatever motivating things that drive Republicans to the polls. Yeah. You just want to deny it oxygen, and I think that's what they're doing. Yeah. And it's very smart. You could garner more enthusiasm for the entire platform by at least mentioning that, like, we stand by our allies. These guys will chuck them under. They've been saying it. They've been saying that a bunch. They have.
I know.
They're not doing it as on the nose as they would. I agree. So
as much as I would like as somebody who lives in Ukraine.
Sure. This is an article on about. H.R. McMaster's book that I think just came out that is talking about how Putin flattered Trump's ego and insecurities while managing him. Trump fell for the tactic, McMaster said, firing every advisor who urged him to change his approach to dealing with Putin. Russian ruler Vladimir Putin manipulated Donald Trump's ego and insecurities. Former U.S. National Security Advisor Herbert McMaster, H.R. McMaster, writes about in his book, At War with Us, My Duty in the Trump White House. The Guardian reports, according to him, Putin used his influence on Trump to exercise an almost hypnotic power over him. But Trump, under the influence, refused to accept any negative assessment of the authoritarian Russian leader from his own staff and eventually fired McMaster because of this. After more than a year in this position, I cannot understand how Putin influenced Trump, McMaster recalls. After Putin's agents poisoned Sergei Skripal, a former Russian intelligence officer, and his daughter in Britain in March 2018, Western leaders began formulating a strong response to the assassination attempt. McMaster says Trump sat in the White House admiring a New York Post article with the headline, Putin praises Trump. According to the book, Trump wrote a thank you note for the article and asked McMaster to pass the clipping on to Putin. I was sure that Putin would use Trump's comment about the Skripal poisoning to cover up the attack, and he did. He said he passed the note to the White House Staff Secretary's office, which handles Oval Office communications. Later, when evidence emerged that the Kremlin, and most likely Putin himself, had ordered the nerve agent attack on Skripal, I told them not to send it. Putin's apparent favoritism toward Trump was a calculated attempt by the Russian leader to exploit him and drive a wedge between him and advisors who were urging the United States to take a tougher stance in the Kremlin. Putin, a ruthless former KGB officer, played to ego and insecurity with flattery. McMaster writes, Putin described Trump as a very brilliant man, talented, no doubt, and Trump showed his vulnerability to that approach. His preference for strong men and his belief that he alone could forge a good relationship with Putin, like his predecessor George H.W. Bush and Barack Obama. Trump was overly confident in his ability to improve relationships with the dictator in the Kremlin. The fact that most foreign policy experts in Washington favored a tough approach of the Kremlin only seemed to encourage the president to take the opposite approach, because he's at his root, besides being an asshole, he's a contrarian for his own ego's sake. If everybody, there's only one way that Trump uses the everybody clause. Either if everybody is saying that, I'm going to say the other thing because I'm smarter than all you fuckers, and you're probably wrong, so I have to be better than you. So if you're all thinking that I'm smarter than you, so smarter would be to pick the alternate position. The other one is that if everybody's telling you, somebody's bad, there's probably something to be, they're warning you off because you have something to gain from hanging with that person. Like, that guy's going to suck up to you. Oh, really? What's he going to suck up to me with? Property? Has he got hot chicks? Has he got, can he get Don the good flake, right?
Well, there's another thing. There is another thing. And I don't think it's a small thing. I mean, and Lev, in last week's episode, we discussed this at length. He's desperate for Putin's approval. He's like a little child. Lev told me the story about how at one point Orban came over and brought a message from Putin, and he describes Trump as having been giddy, like, oh, what did he say about me? Did he mention me? Did he? It's like the schoolgirl who's like, in the gym passing notes, like, does Billy like me? What did Billy mention me? Oh,
right.
Oh,
is Putin going to be my best friend? Will we fall in love? Check this box.
Yeah.
Right.
Check the. Yeah, oh, it's so pathetic and weak.
The weird part is there is a story, by the way. Are you having people driving by your place doing wheelies?
It's Kershachik. It's just Kershachik. It's the main street.
Right.
And it is, by the way, it is blisteringly hot. We're going through another heat wave, which means another stress on the electrical grid.
Right.
We are being warned that we're going to go back into blackouts. So
right, and
it's another hot time. So I've got all the windows open, which is probably
to that contrarian idea that I was talking about. This is a line from the book. My main message during the final preparatory meeting at the Hamburg Mess Conference Center was, "Don't be stupid." McMaster writes, noting that he told the president that what Putin wanted. Listen to this. He told the president what Putin wanted, including for the U.S. to leave Ukraine and withdraw American forces from Syria and Afghanistan, which Trump later ordered. When McMaster told Trump what Putin actually wanted, Trump did it. Whether Putin asked him or not, he did it because he found out he did trust his advisors. He just, he's against the fucking country. He's against America. He
believes
America first. That's the first chip on the table Moscow when he's gambling.
The M should be Moscow. That's funny because I've interviewed H.R. McMaster. I interviewed him in Iraq years and years ago when he was writing an entirely new kind of military doctrine, and it's funny to hear that from that excerpt from his book, because he does not suffer fools lightly. He is a no bullshit kind of guy, and I can almost see his face and hear his voice when he's like, "Don't fuck this up."
Yeah,
don't do this, you dummy.
Don't be stupid. Yeah. So, but again, it sounds like from his telling that, I guarantee when Trump is listening to a translator of a foreign language, I can't imagine his brain works very well. I have to imagine like the mix of foreign words and English words that follow shortly after are just a haze of like, he's just hunting and like an Easter egg for ego points. Like he says you're great. Oh, great. He didn't hear the next 3 sentences because he heard great, that part of it. So the idea that he knows what the fuck was even said in these meetings with Putin is fucking hilarious. He got marching orders, probably on rice paper. Memorize this, do what I tell you or you're dead, and eat it afterwards. Don't worry, we made it taste like McDonald's French fries. And then McMaster ultimately telling him, this is what Putin wants. And he's like, oh, good, do that. Like,
yep.
Clearly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
he's a traitor. He's a straight up traitor.
He's straight up traitor.
He's a straight up traitor. He's straight up a puppet for Putin. I mean, Hillary was no puppet. You're the puppet.
Right. Right. A child.
But he was. She was 100%. Yeah. She was 100% right. And we knew it. Look, this is what I can't wait to get him in our past, in the rear, in our rearview mirror. And then I've said it as many times, I'll say it again, and then I want a full and utter investigation, open, investigation about how compromised he was. Because I speak to people in my contacts in the intelligence community. There's not a single person in the intelligence community that doesn't think he is in some way compromised, but they can't talk about it. And that's part of the issue. I mean, perhaps in certain circumstances they could, but I had a long conversation with somebody recently where we were talking about America being a better ally to Ukraine and all the restrictions that America is putting on usage of weapons and things like that. And I said, look, I am loath to say this. I'm embarrassed that I have to say this, but we have got to get him out and have him no longer be an influence in our body politic.
Right.
Before we can full-fledged, because if we do, as the fear is, escalate things in this conflict, then we might end up giving the GOP and Trump an advantage in the election. And 4 years of Trump or 2 more months of, sadly, having to tie Ukraine's hand behind its back, as awful as that is, it's better than 4 years of Trump. So we just have to get past this election. And then I really do think there's a chance that the Harris-Walz administration just takes it to him. Yeah. I hope. I really do. I think we got to get rid of Jake Sullivan. I hope they get a whole new security. I know there are open discussions of a new security team that she will want to break with the Biden administration. Yeah, and put in a new, which I think would be great. I would hope that they would be one who would be more aggressive. I would love to see Ben Hodges, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I want to see somebody who, especially now that what we're seeing in Kursk, and lots of people are speculating that's why the invasion happened, or at least in part was part of the motivation for the invasion, because Ukraine has now, one of Russia's big red lines is if our domestic territory, if our sovereign territory is threatened, it's written into their security posture. That is one way in which we would be able to use nukes. Well, I haven't been nuked. It's now day 12 or 13.
Also in the Kursk, what are you going to do? Nuke your own territory?
Exactly. So we need to get rid of Jake Sullivan. And, look, it's a hard job, man. And Sullivan. These are
deadly serious decisions, and he's definitely doing his best. But I just think he's conflict averse, and that's not the reality that we're in right now. You know what I mean?
We need to be stronger. Yeah, not more cautious. Caution is, you're dealing with a nuclear power. Caution is a good idea, but being intimidated by the fact that Russia has nukes just emboldens them more. And also,
Spicy Dragon,
time and time again.
Spicy Dragon in our chat, and it brings up a point that I've mentioned many times. Do their nukes even work, and have they been sold off for parts? Like I said, the deep sixed parts of stuff, that's the first thing you fucking sell. That's the first thing you sell. You don't sell the guns because you might need them next week. But anything you don't think you're ever going to use, Jesus Christ, you're pilfering that shit like crazy. That's why a bunch of China's missiles are full of water, because somebody sold the fucking fuel in them. They were. This is a big scandal.
I love the corruption of an autocratic system.
Oh, it's beautiful. So this is an article about walls and how they're talking about him. I think it's in the Kyiv Post. But when Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, the governor instantly condemned the attack as unprovoked, adding, "It's time to unite, protect democracy, and work together to hold Russia accountable." In 2022, Walz also issued an executive order to compel Minnesota state agencies to terminate any contracts with Russian entities over Russia's war against Ukraine. In 2023, Walz met with Vladimir Zelensky, saying it was an honor to speak with the Ukrainian president and to support Minnesota's to promise Minnesota's unwavering support. Speaking on the 2-year anniversary of the invasion on February 2024, Walz declared that Minnesota supports Ukraine as it fights to defend freedom and democracy. That same month, this is what we were talking about earlier, Walz signed an agricultural deal between his state of Minnesota and the North Ukraine region of Chernihiv, saying it's a really important showing of friendship and a real important showing of ties. It's worth adding that Walz's long support for Ukraine and his repeated criticisms of Russia have not gone unnoticed in Ukraine or in Russia. Just this month, Walz has been praised by Alexander Marechko, Ukrainian Foreign Affairs Chairman, who describes Walz as a very pro-Ukrainian, and our press and our people, they view him as a friend, a true friend of Ukraine. And the Kyiv Independent described Walz as an outspoken Ukraine supporter. And its comments given to European Pravda, a Ukrainian online newspaper, Ukraine ambassador to the U.S., Oksana Makarova, praised Walz's record on Ukraine. Governor Walz is definitely one of the leaders of such support and a reliable friend of our country. Yeah. That is
it's those good old. Well, first off, he signed up. When he signed up, when he joined the military, it was the Cold War. The enemy was Russia. And, he probably remembers a lot of the training and the doctrine that justifiably our military was prepping for. And secondly, as just a good old Midwesterner and the kind of character that he had, that Walz has exhibited, Midwesterners don't like bullies. They like fair play. That's a whole big thing in the Midwest, as you well know. We don't like we don't like bullies. We don't like people who bully other people. There's fair play in the Midwest. It's a big deal. So, Putin's a bully. Of course, Walz is going to oppose him. I think it's great. Obviously, I don't think he can be more than just like a point man on that, because this has to be Harris's policy. She, as POTUS, will have to be the one that is seen to be in control of our Ukraine posture. But I wouldn't be terribly surprised if he is, as Biden was to Obama, that he could do the shuttle diplomacy. He can be the one that goes back and forth from Europe and Brussels and Kiev and wherever he needs to go. And he can do the footwork, and then she can, take the credit, which is kind of the role of the VP anyway. So I'm all for it. Look, I mean, as if they needed another reason for my ballot, but I'm a single issue voter. This is my single issue. And surprise, surprise, it ain't going to go to Trump, and Vance, because they're pro Putin. They're fellow travelers. So
So
I got a couple of stories. Can I jam a couple of stories in before?
Of course. I just want to remind everybody about On the Edge. Phil's new podcast. You can check it out. It's every Sunday. They have a new episode. It's terrific. We saw a bunch of people in the chat room mentioning earlier how much they loved the last episode. Now go ahead. Feel free.
Lev Parnas was really good. This week, unless something unexpected happens, it'll be John Sweeney, British journalist and author. John Sweeney will be our guest this week. They're just two quick stories I want to bring to folks' attention. You might be hearing tales of like Ukraine is outlawing Christianity. There's a new law that's just been ratified by the parliament here, and it outlaws the clergy at the church itself of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which is a hold on from empire. They are their patriarch, the head of their church, is not here in Kiev. He's in Moscow. It's Patriarch Kirill, ultimately, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, just as Catholics, ultimately it goes to the Pope. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church, ultimately it goes to Kirill. This is not a church. It is a representative of Moscow. What country in the world would allow a fifth column posing as a church to continue to operate? This has nothing to do with forcing the faithful not to practice their faith.
Yeah.
It is, we are not going to let these clergymen spread disinformation, misinformation, and promote anti-Kiev propaganda.
Right.
Much less, actually let them store money and propaganda goods and all sorts of things, which several raids on these churches have found. So the church, the infrastructure of the church and the clergy of the church are now shut down because they are, again, they're not a church. They're a fifth column meant to attack Ukraine. So don't let anybody tell you that, the Ukrainians are outlawing Christianity. They're not. There's no other church that's been affected. There are Episcopalians here. There are Baptists. There are Catholics. There are every other sect. There, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism.
And again, I would just say the easiest answer to that bullshit, if I may, Matthew 6:6. Matthew 6:6, ladies and gentlemen. That's all you have to say. When they go, they're shutting down the churches and Matthew 6:6. Matthew 6:6 is Jesus's admonition that you should pray in silence or in secret. You should go into your private room and pray. You do your own worshiping on your own. The church, that Peter would be the rock on which it was built, was a formative idea of the belief system sprawling across, not an actual fucking building. You're not going to build the church on your back or out of stone. The church is the teachings, right? That is what exists, not the buildings that it happens in. That did matter. Matthew 6:6 is the one, especially that's the pushback against fucking, they shut down churches during fucking COVID. All this stuff. Matthew 6:6, motherfucker. Jesus said you pray in secret to your Lord who is secret, who is beyond the scene. Your God who is unseen, you should be unseen when you are praying to him. That's it. When you worship.
And it is also worth mentioning, by the way, that while on this side of the battle lines, they're shutting down one church, one sect, which is allied with the Patriarch in Moscow. Nobody else is being affected. However, on the other side of the equation, as Russian forces move into occupying territory, they start to invade and occupy territory. One of the very first things they do, in their top 10 list of things to do, is to go to, in particular, evangelical and Baptist, and all, because there's been an influx, mainly actually from the United States, of evangelical missions that have come to Ukraine over the many, many years. And they have built Baptist churches, or other forms of evangelical, the churches in the East. The Russians, when they take territory, one of the first things they do is they go to, because they only allow the Russian Orthodox Church. Right. So it is not Ukraine that is just arbitrarily attacking religion. They're attacking one religion because it is being used to attack.
Because it's fake. Yeah, it's a propaganda arm.
Because it's fake. It's an arm of the Kremlin.
At this point, fuck the shutting down of the churches. Russia just shut down YouTube. They just throttled YouTube since Kursk. So they don't. You can't get on YouTube in half of Russia now. You can do it in the Kremlin, but you can't do it outside. And I think their internet is tied around. So some of the buildings close by, like a couple of the hotels, you can do it, but you can't do it in the rest of the country. You have to use a VPN, or you can't at all. Or if you try, they'll come after you. That said, Amy wanted me to say, she's super chatting. She said, "Can you tell Phil his Lev interview was so good?" So it was very good. So anyways, we're at the end of the show.
And then the very, very one quick last thing.
Yeah, sure.
Dubia, we have Ukrainian Independence Day is on the 24th, so 3 days away. We can 100% expect that Russia will try to terrorize and intimidate the people of Ukraine during their celebrations for Independence Day, because it's what they like to do. It is part of their psychological warfare and their terrorism. Right. So we can sadly expect some sort of attack here over the next few days. Right. Do not be shocked. We will live through it. We will survive because we can't be bombed.
Yeah, I think they're so far.
We'll celebrate Independence Day.
Yeah, so far they're like Russia Day and the attacks plan on that stuff are about 50-50 at this point, because I don't even think they have a coordinated attack plan as it is. It's almost like some of their generals.
Yeah. I think with what's going on with Kursk, though, I think we can expect it.
Yeah, I agree, but I think
everybody here is talking. Everybody.
Putin doesn't have to order it. That just generals who want to ruin the fun can do it, because that was the concern about tactical nukes, was that these guys could launch them on their own without asking the Kremlin, because that was leftover rule from the Cold War. So, but we'll, it's going to be okay. I'm not worried about that. But stay safe.
We're gonna win. We're gonna win.
We're gonna win, and faster than people think. And man, the minute. Yep. I got to say, the minute she wins and it's clear that Trump is not going to have his kind of leverage, and the people that support him are in retreat, Russia has no bargaining power past that at all. So, anyways, love you guys. Thank you so much. Please check out On the Edge, Phil's new podcast. Subscribe to his YouTube channel as well. Sunday's the new episode. They've been really fantastic, and it's a necessary conversation, because it deals a lot with the sort of the humanity of the conflict, not just the numbers of it, which I think is crucial. So thanks so much, Phil. Stay safe and stay cool if you can, and I will see you later.
Oh, yeah. All right, man. Take care.
Cheers. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. And chat room, I appreciate you guys. I adore you. And I'm going to go collapse, because I am dead on my feet right now. Whew. Got through it, though. Huh? You did drive all night just to get back home. I'm a cowboy on a steel horse I ride. I'm wanted. Dead on my feet. All right, so I will see you guys later. I got to rest my voice some in the next couple of days, because I got to sing my ass off on Saturday. So love you guys. Take care, and I will see you this afternoon. Regular show this afternoon. There will be no Friday shows because of my flights to Gatlinburg. I've got to fly to Knoxville and then pick up Vic, our bass player, and then drive him to Gatlinburg for the Monsters on the Mountain on Saturday. So to get there in time to get him and to do my Saturday show, the radio show will go ahead as usual. Doing that from there, to be able to do that, I have to go in the day before. So, and radio takes precedence, because I try not to leave WCPT hanging. Anyways, love you guys. Thank you so much. And by the way, these new Nerd Halen shirts are now available on the Streamlabs on the Twitch store. So if you're a Twitch subscriber, there's like a link below. But yeah, I think we have links up in there anyways. But I'm pretty proud of it. It's actually, they wear very nicely. They're good. I test my own merch and I wear them around, because I hate how shit merch is. I don't need to talk about this. You guys get it. I adore you. I'm going to go lay down. Okay, bye. Hit that like on your way out, though, guys. Thank you so much. My throat is hot. I got blisters on my fingers.